entire worldview and paradigm that accounts for all these things. So we're not just saying necessary precondition, therefore God. That's not all what at all we're just saying. There is a positive account, and that's something that was mentioned earlier, but was kind of let off.
And that's the whole worldview. But before we get to that, it needs to be shown that they can just grant themselves things without justifying it. That's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah,
Is
They're
just
not
absolutely.
showing
going to
you
be
just
able to show you anything. You might as well just get into an actual subject
Well,
because
let
it's
him
a
let
wait,
him
you're not
go.
going to just I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. You're not going
Yeah,
to
stand by.
justify any claim?
Sure, no matter which side you're on one side or the other, and it's called a postulate. You cannot prove it. It's called faith. So
The,
you have a faith side, and so do they.
How can you prove that you can't prove it? Can you justify that claim?
Yeah, it's because of this sandwich. That's how.
No,
Oh, how does
it's because
sandwich account for that?
sir,
Same way
hold on,
Jesus
That's your
does.
argument?
The same way the Trinity
Who's-
does. What do you mean? How does a
come on,
sandwich
bro.
does
Come on now.
everything?
Come on now. Hey,
Sandwich
listen,
Hold on,
the
hold on.
uncreated.
Allow me to try to bring some assembly. Let's try to go one at a time. At least try. Go ahead, back to Chase. I think you were kicking off before I interrupted.
Yeah, so all I'm pointing out and why they're getting angry is because they are not being allowed to just grant themselves objective truth claims without justifying them. And now they're just shouting sandwich
The
and just
exact
saying,
same way that you are. I have as much evidence that sandwich created the universe as you do that Jesus did. Actually, probably more because sandwich I can prove tangibly exists. You can't do the same for the Trinity.
so you only believe in things that physically exist?
No, that's not what I said.
Oh, but you
that's
can only
not the real
prove things
question.
exist that are physical, right?
No, that's
Is a
not what I
hot
said.
dog a sandwich?
Well, then how do you prove non-physical things?
You're
said you
moving the
can only prove
goalpost because you don't want to
sandwich.
acknowledge the fact that my sandwich has
You
more
made the claim.
viability than your Trinity. Your
Why
Trinity
Can you
doesn't
make-
even
you
make
made
it
the
possible
claim.
conceptually.
Can you make a positive account on how a sandwich grants you the possibility of knowledge?
thank you.
Sure, it created everything.
Continue.
That's not an account.
Without the Trinity, or without the Trinity sandwich, I can't have knowledge, and I have knowledge. You have knowledge, so obviously, sandwich created things.
So you're complete. You guys and Neil. This is actually where I was kind of getting into it before my phone was having problems. You do misrepresent the tag argument. It's not an argument that's just saying like it's not a tautology. It's saying God is the necessary precondition for knowledge. Knowledge, therefore, God. Right. So the argument is that God is the necessary precondition. Now, to substantiate that claim is actually a disjunctive. So I know that you're not a philosopher, but
What do you mean by that?
So a disjunctive would be a proposition that is an either-or statement, essentially. So the possibility of knowledge is either theonomous or not theonomous, meaning from God, and it is not theonomous because there is no autonomous worldview that can actually account for the possibility of knowledge.
You would have to ask God for that to be the case, sir.
This is a false binary.
No,
Well, and
because
it's not a false binary.
How's
And there's
that a false dichotomy?
yeah, and there's
Because
numerous.
you're forcing something that we don't know the answer to into an either or when we don't know if these are the two
You
options
just
available.
you're claiming we don't know the answer. We have a different position than you. So you're saying,
Yes.
oh, you
No.
don't know, you don't believe something. Well, let me finish. You don't believe something, so nobody knows it. You're going to need to actually demonstrate that claim, and we can start off even more simply. Either the universe is intentional or it's not intentional. Is the universe intentional, powdered, dusty, or is it not intentional?
I must be confused about what you're trying to communicate me. Could you lead the way and
Do
demonstrate
you understand the
using
question?
your
Can you
own?
repeat the question I just asked you?
I want you to lead by example and show me how.
Can you repeat the question I
Trinity-
answered?
I'm asking you to teach it better.
Okay,
Oh.
great. Is the universe intentional or is it not intentional? This is a true dichotomy. It's an either or,
Mhm.
and one of them will immediately collapse and destroy the possibility of knowledge. So, in
Huh.
your worldview, is the universe intentional or is it not intentional?
Don't know.
You don't know your own worldview?
I don't know if it's intentional or not. I have no idea. I didn't create everything.
Okay, cool. So, you do not hold the belief that the universe is intentional, correct?
Let's
It
say
may be intentional. What I
Let's
hold
say
the
that-
belief is
So
that
you
I
don't know.
don't.
You
hold-
don't know what you
hold
believe.
On, hold on. Let me finish. I don't hold the knowledge of how the universe was created. Do you hold the knowledge?
God
I'm
created the
sorry.
universe. I don't know
I'm
every
sorry.
single
I'm sorry.
mechanic, but
I'm so
again,
sorry. I'm
you're
so
not
sorry.
answering. One second, Dr. Luke.
Sure.
You're literally saying, no, the universe is not intentional. I don't hold that belief. That means everything in the universe is
No,
accidental.
I didn't say that.
And that So
want me
you
to
do
say
believe
that.
the universe is intentional?
What I said is that I do not know the answer to that question because
So then how
I
are you
didn't
gonna
create
Cool.
critique?
So
I didn't
so
create the
in your
universe and I
worldview,
wasn't
that you
there.
know what that means? Do you know what that
Hmm.
means? Because it's an either or and it's an actual dichotomy. That means in your worldview, I don't know the answer. That means it's not
That's
intentional.
not what that means. As much
Oh,
as
is it
you want it to
intentional?
mean that,
Is it
what I'm saying
intentional?
is you're asking for information I don't have.
Okay, yeah. So you don't know if the universe is intentional, correct?
Oh my fucking god!
Oh, whoa.
Correct.
Can
And
you
I'm
can you
sorry.
focus?
I'm sorry. Can I? I've been listening to this for
well,
like the last 15 minutes. I just want to
oh,
say just
hold
one
on
thing to
just a
this.
second. Let me do some logistics and then I'll hand it back to you, Dr. Luke,
Sure
and you
thing.
can
You a
add
whole
in.
ass bitch, Sweater.
Sweater has dropped a full 100, and
Wow.
here we know 100 is a full boot for the
Someone's
evening.
getting scared that his Jesus is going down. Bye, Sweater.
So, any of you Flow
Go eat
State
your
Powder
sandwich.
Dusty
I'm
fans,
breathing
if
it.
you if you would like to keep Flow on, you have to match it. So I'm going to put Flow backstage for a couple minutes. If somebody chooses to match to bring him back up, we will gladly keep him here. Otherwise, Flow will be booted for the entire evening. So I'll give you a few minutes to
Oldest
do
thread as
so.
I walk away.
And, and then
Okay, wow.
allow me, if you don't mind, gentlemen, and Dr. Luke, I did say I will hand it back to you. Let me get through just a couple super chats that came in that I didn't get to get through. Evan Lord sends with the big five. A question for Gnostic. Have you researched Persian philosophy? The Persian philosophy holds up Islam like Greek philosophy holds up Christianity. And that's directly to you, Gnostic.
A little bit. I've talked to some scholars that talk about like Zoroastrianism and the Magi. It holds up Islam. I would say a little bit. I mean, there's probably a little bit of influence on that. Yeah, sure.
Okay. And then past, of course, so throwing a big five to say the chat always wins, which is true here. And James, can you just say back in my day real quick?
Ha ha ha, but back in my day. Ha ha ha. Very funny.
And Daniel gifted 5
Thank you,
Gnostic
Daniel.
Informant memberships and also follows up to say, would the gospel be less psychologically powerful if Jesus was not a god and just a magus? In my view, Jesus was a Gnosticism.
Was the
a
church?
was the church.
Would it be less psychologically powerful? I don't know. Probably. Sure.
I mean, that's just arbitrary again, though. Psychologically powerful could be anything to a million different people,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you're getting into different problems of you have knowledge of who Jesus is through and what he said through the Bible, which was passed on through a historical body that believed that Christ is God.
Mhm.
So you're going to have a big epistemic problem there of rejecting their belief and then going in. But
Anyways,
yeah,
No, I agree. I agree. That's an issue with knowing fully who Jesus was. But yeah.
Can I ask you
Yeah.
fellers a question?
Well, I
Well,
wanted to hand it back to Dr. Luke because I interrupted him for the logistics. So, Dr. Luke, back to you, sir.
Yeah,
If you want to chime in on it.
Are you a
Sure
real
thing.
doctor, by the way?
Yes, actually, it was just conferred last week, actually. So,
Nice.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
yeah.
You never know with the internet nowadays, right?
No, I understand. I totally get it. So, thank you so much, Sarah and Gnostic Informant, for this wonderful show. So, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm looking at your Chase. Hi, Chase. Hi.
hey,
Luke here. Just call me Luke. It's totally fine.
can I call
You
you
said
Mr. Doctor, sir?
So you were
I
talking
wasn't, but
about
I am now.
you were talking about intention. So something that I've come to the realization, and it was actually it was through a lot of kind of heuristic and empirical pain, and I'm speaking more along the lines of a child kind of looking at his father, and I don't need to get into that. But what I've come to understand about this place, this where we are, is that this place is really it kind of distills down to consent and intent, intention and consent, like for real. Like that is the baseline of this place. And last night I was talking to my partner, my life partner,
Oh,
And we just so I just turned
your life
44.
partner. Okay, get to the point.
Oh,
Let's go.
stop that.
Come
I'm
on,
just going to
bro.
put you in
That's
the back for
Mr. Dr.
interrupting
Luke to
him.
you.
That
If
was
you're gonna egg him on, you're gonna
absolutely,
say Mr. Dr. Luke. Let's get to the point. I'm just kidding.
absolutely fucking unacceptable. Hopefully, all of you other fine gentlemen have better manners. Dr. Luke, please continue.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So my partner and I we've been married for, 12 years. We consciously, with intention and consent, decided to have a child. And we just and our daughter is going to be 9 months old at, towards the end of this month. We've I'm 44, she's 34. We spent our whole lives, I know we always wanted to have children, but we wanted to do it with consent and intent. And obviously, when you have a child, some things kind of come to the surface. And I know for me, that 9-month period of getting to her nativity really, it was a healing process, and it brought about a lot of it brought up like a lot of childhood trauma. So I'm going back and I'm looking at my childhood, and I'm thinking about my dad, and I'm thinking to myself, what was the purpose of you having me? Was it just like going through the motion? Was that just like an exercise of, because obviously the way things work down here, we can all agree it's alchemy, because this realm, all of the divine opposites are ripped apart: masculine, feminine, light and dark. And the way things work down here is alchemy. When a man and woman come together, that's alchemy. And obviously, this is a material world, mater, mother. This world is, like I said, two things: patterns and matter, consent and intent, pater. That's the binary code, pater, patterns, the ones and the zeros, the binary code, and matter, mater, the material. So this place is, to your point, I'm sorry, I can't see. Chase. Yeah, this place is two things. It's consent and intent. However, there are levels of that consent and intent, right? There's you as a child, that children, that's they have their own world, right? And I think too often adults put upon children,
Imagine getting diagnosed by this guy, and he's just like, well, like in this world, like sometimes you get sick, and
I'm
sometimes
gonna
you're
I'm
healthy,
gonna ask
and, like your
you,
mother and your
Dr.
father.
Luke, if you could, like, if there's a question built into what you were kind of monologuing on, if you could ask that question briefly because somebody has booted you to the back.
And I would like to share some feelings just in general as well in a moment.
I don't have a question. I was just saying that this realm is consent and intent. That's all I was saying.
Can I ask real quick before you go? How do you know that?
And you don't have the chat's consent to keep rambling. Sorry.
But how do you know that it's a universal claim, right? And you're a particular human. I'm asking, how do you know this universal state of affairs?
How do I know
And
this
congrats on your
universal?
daughter too. Congrats on that's amazing. Congratulations.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
It is.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Well, so I said, how I know this is that we both, my partner and I, came together and we decided.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think the question is bigger. It's bigger than just you and your partner, right? If it's a universal claim, like, you would have to back it up with something a little bit more substantial than just your personal experience with your wife.
Well, here, and I can try something real quick. So,
Okay.
you know, a lot of people don't know this, but my parents passed away when I was very young, and I got, adopted as an orphan. And for the longest time, I was kind of ostracized by my parents. But then over time, I started getting these invitations to this school, and it seemed like a really weird thing. And it wasn't just a normal invitation dropped off in the mail by a person. It was actually owls that just kept coming and dropping all of the letters off, and they just wouldn't stop. And eventually I found out I was a wizard.
You're Harry
And that
Potter.
We
no,
might all
that has
burn in
nothing to do
hell
with
for
this.
this
That has
one. All right,
literally
the
nothing to do
chat,
with. I'm sorry.
Dr. Luke, the chat has spoken. I'm going to let you go sit backstage for a little bit and think about it. And maybe when you come up, you can be a little more direct and clear with your thought process on that, aside from just your personal experience, maybe. And we'll
It was
get
nice
that
to meet you,
sorted
Dr. Luke.
out.
Nice to meet you,
It was nice
Dr.
to
Luke.
meet you.
We will get it sorted out. Let me hit some
Can I
super
can I
chats
suggest
and then
something? Okay, go ahead. I was gonna say when you're
let
done
me.
with that, I think it was I forgot his name on the bottom right corner.
Schoolboy.
I wanted to hear what he was getting at before his phone was messed up.
Fair enough. And let me get
Yeah,
through these,
so
and then Schoolboy, I'll hand it to you. S Mill comes in with a big 5. Do you know if dogs go to heaven? It's a binomial. You don't know, then you say they don't. I don't know. Do I have dyslexia? Am I reading this right?
Do I know if dogs go to heaven? I don't know. Either they do or they don't, right?
Are they actually
I think it
asking?
meant
Well,
if you, not I am.
you. Okay, thank you. That hurt my brain. If you don't know, then you say they don't. Okay, I see what he's saying. And Sarcastic Saint says, okay, oh, sorry, that you sending him back. Chef Dylan, once Dr. Luke started kicking off, said no. And of course, lots of boots coming in for Dr. Monologue, Dr. Luke, Dr.
He's a nice guy. Nice guy.
It's not bad. It's just with
I'm
this
sorry.
type
I have
of
to
group.
apologize. When he said we came together, I couldn't help myself.
I'd imagine so, especially coming from you, Sasquatch. Marcus with the Big 10 says, not a diary, bruv. Yes, dear personal, public, everybody diary. And Evan Lord comes in with a big 5. Confucius says that Dr. Luke is spewing a psychobabble. Kick him. Also, I meant the philosophy and philosophers Booth helped build and maintain religions. I think that was taking it back to what he was asking you earlier about the Persian thing.
Yeah.
And of course, Grid coming in with the boot as well. And Dr. Luke, will you give Duck his first frost? Jesus, Lord. When he turns 45 or 50, Duck also needs a lobotomy. James says, Scooby Dooby Doo and 5 minutes. So, James, you're getting 5 in the back as well. There we go. And Dub coming up. And I think, oh, wait, I'm sorry. Not you, Dub. We got new people back here. All right. There we go. Okay. I think we're all set. All right. Schoolboy, back to you, please.
So, yeah, I was talking about the Munchausen's trilemma, and that all worldviews, their epistemology is essentially grounded in one of 3 options, and that is infinite regress, circularity, or dogmatic assertions. Right?
Okay.
And when you were talking about the tag argument earlier, you kind of put it in this dichotomy, not looking at the third option, like the circularity, right? And Orthodox Christianity actually answers this in a very unique way, because the circularity isn't necessarily a problem for us. There's a difference between vicious circularity and virtuous circularity. And an example I could give you is that if we're having a semantic debate about what a word means in a conversation, right? By even having that debate, we're already presupposing that words have meaning.
Right.
So there is a recursion to that. It's not viciously circular in the aspect where like Protestantism would be with, oh, how do you know that? The Bible. Well, how do you know what the Bible says? The Bible. That's viciously circular. Orthodox Christianity doesn't fall into that same problem because we also hold the oral tradition and there's a historical continuity. But the tag argument is making the argument for an epistemologically holistic worldview, saying that the possibility of knowledge, there is no other foundational, I won't even say foundational because that's not right, but there is no other justification for the possibility of knowledge other than a theonomous worldview. And to even take it a step further, a revelatory framework. So you were talking about why couldn't it be grounded in like the Greek?
Yeah.
Because it would be begging the question if it was not revelatory.
So for example,
these assertions.
Yep. So for example,
ahead,
without any type of access through First off, having the universe be intentional at a minimum, which is why I brought up that dichotomy before with the guy who could not even follow along. With the worldview being intentional, now you can even start getting moving and saying, okay, that's why we have order in things. That's why tomorrow will be like today. That's why water will still boil at the temperature it does today, as it will tomorrow. And when you start getting into those universal claims of saying water's going to boil at Neil's house at the same temperature it's going to boil at Chase's house, you're getting into things that you're not empirically verifying. You're stuck in particular states of verification of instances like David Hume brought up, and without any type of revelatory theism to be able to account for and justify a universal state of affairs of water always boiling at a same temperature somewhere else, you're never going to be able to justify that ever. And if we don't have to justify it, we don't care about justifying it, we're going to go back in the problems that I was illustrating at the beginning of the conversation. That wasn't a dodge. That was to lay the groundwork for this, to show, hey, we can't go back there or you're going to have to forfeit an insane amount of stuff and everything's going to break.
Why does that have to be revelatory to know that water boils at a specific temperature, no matter where I'm at on the planet?
So you and me are particulars that are stuck in a certain instance of time, right? Seeing, well, every time I've seen water boil, it's been at this temperature, right? And let's just grant measurement and all that.
That's
right?
inductive
Let's just grant
reasoning,
for
right?
now.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. How are you going to be able to say, how are you going to be able to justify that it always will? You can't if you're stuck in just your particular instances of this material knowledge.
Right. It's inductive reasoning. Every time I've boiled water, it's always been at the same temperature. Therefore, if the likelihood of it boiling at the same temperature is extremely high. What's wrong with saying that?
You won't, because you won't be able to justify that likelihood claim. Where did that come from?
Right, but I can do an experiment and I can do it. I can't experiment and determine if the revelatory God of the Christian Bible is
the experiment is actually the argument that and the experiment, quote unquote, right? One second. The experiment, quote unquote, is, and the testing of it is seeing if your worldview can account for the very possibility of the things you're using right now to argue and to boil water. And sorry, schoolboy, I was cutting you off by accident.
But I can make worldview account for things. I can write up my own worldview that account for things and just make my own theories about things, and it can account for everything. It doesn't mean it's true.
You
it
can't,
seems like creating a problem
even...
that you didn't answer, right? Like that's what it feels like to me. Because we sit in here and argue over it, because I'm not a deep philosophy guy either. I only dabble. I'm a dabbler. But it seems to me
you say you're a diddler?
I'm a dabbler. A dabbler.
You're a diddler. It's cutting out. You just keep.
He's hitting the Cam Newton 2015.
I'm just playing. I'm sorry.
I guess, man.
I'm just playing, man. I'm just playing.
He's handing it to McCaffrey
because we keep talking about things as though they are things like outside of what my context that I keep them in. So like to me, like if belief is like a brain state where you're taking a proposition to be true, and then knowledge is just a belief that you hold to a certain degree of confidence. Because you guys aren't talking about like true knowledge. Knowledge can be false, right?
No, that's not knowledge.
That's not.
Well, it depends.
Okay, your definition of knowledge is that it's true. It comports with reality.
Justified true belief, and sometimes you may need a fourth condition like non-accidental or something. That's where Gettier cases. We're fine with Gettier cases. That Gettier cases actually have nothing to do with the possibility of knowledge itself. Gettier cases assume that knowledge is possible, is what we're bringing into question.
So how do you get past any of this just being reality? Because reality is our basis for what objectivity and objective truth is, right?
Reality is what's in question right now. That's like the biggest claim you can ever make, and the most old question of all of philosophy is, what the heck is this stuff? It's all water, it's all fire, it's all this. That's the biggest question ever, and I can just say, okay, man, if you're okay with that level of philosophy and lack of it, cool, man. Like me and Schoolboy just deserve all your income, and we just do. It's just reality. You need to pay up. Neil, you need to give me your channel. You just need to do it.
I'm sorry.
I'm confused on something. Like our knowledge that we have is built on knowledge that precedes it, right? I mean, even like heliocentrism was built off of geocentrism, and just after a while, more observations, more hypotheses, we changed our model. So what would you define? Can't knowledge be false? Like, what would you define
It's
that
false information.
Yeah,
It's
so
not
real
actual
quick.
knowledge.
Yeah, and that's why we brought up you in your worldview. Obviously, you can define something as you want, and we can talk about that, right? We, in our worldview, knowledge is a justified true belief, and sometimes you may need a fourth condition, like non-accidental or something. We don't need those for meta level arguments, though. That's a whole different question of like Gettier cases and stuff. So, justified true belief, you can't have false knowledge just based on our definition, just analytically, you can't. That doesn't answer the question of knowledge being possible. That's just analytically true. It's not in our definition.
So you're just defining knowledge as something that is true depending on what people believe. That's knowledge.
A justified meaning you have good reasons to believe, and obviously we can get into good reasons. And I'm not ever asking people for some exhaustive definition of something, right? Because I agree. It's like, no, our predicates are gonna end up at a spot where we just have to say, well, there's an essence or a nature of this thing. I can't fully define what that thing is, but I can account for things, right? And essences. So justified true belief is our definition of knowledge. So justified good reasons to believe, which backing that up a little bit more broad, reasons that are coherent and that actually logically link together to what you're saying is the case, right? Like your bank account, you know how much money you usually make a month. You can have a justified belief of how much money you're going to make this month. I hope you make really good money this month. It may not be true. Could be. You could have good reasons to believe it, and it could not be true. You could make more, right? But you have good reasons to believe it.
Sure.
Based on track record and stuff like that. Blah, blah, blah.
Sorry. I just wanted to kind of like talk about the justified thing real quick. Like when we're talking about like justified true belief in terms of like, because you said Gnostic, that is it something that people just believe in? It would be something that we believe in insofar as it being having explanatory power, right? It actually having the ability to explain something in a coherent method, rather than, because people can believe things all day long, but if they're incapable of actually showing how that system that they believe in would be coherent and actually follow a proper set of systems that would make something true in the first place, then they wouldn't be a justified true belief in any way, shape, or form. It would simply just be considered information rather than knowledge, which wouldn't be the
And
same
I got to
thing.
jump in for just a sec. It's getting late. I have to get up at 5:30 a.m. tomorrow. Neil, it's really good to see you. Sarah, thanks for having me up. Nice to meet you. I gotta reach out to you. I remember like last year we were like you were on a stream and I was in your chat. We're like, oh yeah, let's chat. Schoolboy, Bryce, they're awesome. Sarah, they're really cool. I don't know if you met them before, but before they go, whenever they do, you should give them a chance to shout out their stuff. They're really cool. Thanks for having me on. Hope everybody has a good night. Have a good night, Neil. See you guys.
Good night, Chase.
All right, well.
You're hurting my feelings, Chase.
All right, so let me ask you this. I have a lot of questions right now that I would like to go, and I'm trying to think of which the best course. But I would, I guess, if I was, for example, I'm a Taoist priest, and I say the Tao accounts for all knowledge. What would you say to refute that under the same circular tag argument? The Tao accounts for all knowledge. The Tao is the precondition for all knowledge. How do you disapprove that under your worldview?
So, like, what about the Tao? Like, how so?
The Tao, it counts for all things.
I mean, it goes back to like the explanatory power thing, right? So if you make that claim.
Yeah, that's not what we do with tag, by the way. So you may have like talked to people that are very poor at giving the positive account or even arguing tag accurately. And that's why I was kind of going into that earlier, saying like, okay, yes, we have the modus ponens, we have God is a necessary precondition for knowledge, knowledge, therefore God, right? That is a sound and valid form of argumentation. It's just boilerplate.
Saying good sound is
what's the difference
begging a lot in there.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand. What was the difference between the way you just phrased it and me saying that the Christian God is the precondition of all knowledge, therefore knowledge is based on or is grounded and justified by God? What's the difference?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
If I said, I'll even use the Taoist frameworks because just so I can want to hear how you the Tao is the precondition for all knowledge. Okay, Now, the Tao is the precondition for all knowledge.
Necessary precondition.
Yeah, knowledge is
That is very important.
The necessary. I'm sorry. Say that again. The
It would
necessary
be
precondition for all knowledge.
Blank is the necessary precondition for blank. Blank, therefore blank.
Just set your foundation. Set your foundation. So you're trying to make an argument, and you're trying to make an argument now.
It's not classical foundationalism.
Sure. What?
Set your foundation.
So you're saying there's a difference between throwing the word necessary in there and not throwing the word necessary in there?
Absolutely.
What does that word necessary do compared to me just saying it?
Set your foundation.
I kind of implied something would be a massive difference.
Hold on, bro. Hold on.
Something is
Just
contingent.
hold on. For like Scooby or whatever. Just hold on. If you truly are a particular priest, then go ahead and explain all the beliefs that you have.
I didn't say I was a priest.
No, you're asking me.
Come on, we were having a conversation.
Oh, I thought he was talking to me. I'm sorry.
Then you just made up a scenario in which you have no knowledge on anything. So
you're talking about me?
No, he's talking to me, Neil. He's just yapping.
No, I'm not. No,
he's talking to me. I'm using the Tao as an example, and okay, fine. But you notice how if I said the Tao is the necessary precondition of all knowledge, right away I'm getting asked, explain why the Tao is the. I'm waiting for someone to explain to me why the Orthodox God is the I'm still have not heard anything yet. Nothing.
Okay, so would you like to hear that or no?
That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yes.
That's what I've been trying to get to, Gramps. Like,
go ahead. Go ahead, schoolboy. Finish your thought.
Yeah, finish.
So I'm just laying out the argument in the proper format for you because it seemed like you have encountered people that are arguing it poorly in the past. So I'm showing you the modus ponens, and then anyone that rejects the modus ponens asks, what's the justification for that? And then it becomes the disjunctive, that knowledge is either theonomous or not theonomous. And it is not theonomous.
Let's say that it is. Let's say that it is.
Yep. Yeah. And then they go, okay, what's the justification for that? And then it becomes a form of informal argumentation via reductio ad absurdum of all other worldviews. So if you posit something that could possibly be a precondition, we would then take a look inside, take a look around, do an internal critique, and see if it's actually coherent.
What's the difference between me doing that to you?
So this is an argument. This is an argument from ignorance in this form. Saying this particular worldview is false is going to never imply that my particular worldview is true.
Well, let it
show. Hey, Gnostic informant is incorrect.
Hold
on. Gnostic informant is incorrect.
I didn't hear what you said. Sorry. Repeat that again.
So this is just a basic argument from ignorance. We can show, even if we grant Gnostic informant, your worldview is false. Saying Gnostic informant's worldview is false doesn't imply Eastern Orthodoxy is correct.
That's what I've been trying to say this entire time.
Yeah.
It's just a classical form of an argument from ignorance.
So no, you'd figure out what it is. It's an argument from. Okay, can anyone else speak? Because it's an argument from a postulate. So now we're all at postulate scenario, and we're having to try to figure out things and reason with one another in a way that we can understand. That's what we're trying to do here.
The most this can ever get to is Schoolboy NQ's worldview is more justified than Gnostic informants by saying Gnostic informants worldview is incorrect. That never gets to Schoolboy NQ's worldview is false based on the truth value of Gnostic informants.
No, but here's the problem. Here's the problem.
Dub, you asked a question. You gotta shut up to let them answer.
So we have been through this multiple times. Schoolboy, I'm gonna give you the view. We can have the truth table that includes your view, and we have the truth table that involves Gnostic informant's view. Gnostic's going to be Q, yours is going to be P. Gnostic's view, Q false, Q true. We can get the implication of if Gnostic's view is true, then your view is false because there's a difference there. That's always going to be implied. But we can never get to
I would agree if Gnostic's view is false.
We can't get to the view of if Gnostic's view is false, therefore Schoolboy's view is true. That doesn't follow.
Okay, so in terms okay, can I respond? Or Bryce, would you like to respond?
I was about to say that, like, in terms of like,
I don't think you've had the pleasure of interacting with Corinth yet, so I'll give you a chance.
No, you're fine. So, like, when we're talking about like P or Q, like when we're doing it in a disjunctive format, We're making the positive claim that P would be directly our position, and then Q would be the alternate position, right? And if you're going to basically postulate the Q as your position, then you'd have to represent that position.
So if you're saying
what are you talking about? Hold on. Do you think that there's a difference? No, hold on. Do you think that there's a third option other than theonomous and not theonomous?
Okay, so that's not what we're positing here. We're not positing theonomous versus non-theonomous. We're positing schoolboy's view versus Gnostic's view. There is the third option.
The
there's
Tao would
Sarah's
be, the Tao would be
there's
autonomous.
The fourth option. There's Corinth's view. There's the fifth option. There's Abe Dinkus's view. We can never get to, well, P through not Q. We can only get to not Q given P.
Yeah. So when we're talking, that's why it would be considered a reductio ad absurdum of all other possibilities to make Q the case or P the case.
And that has nothing to do with Gnostic's view. You can do the reductio absurdum of all other views.
If Gnostic is holding a position that specifically is attempting to go against P in the way that we're positing it, and then he's incapable of that at that time. I'm not saying you are Gnostic, but I'm saying, like, for the sake of the argument, if he's incapable of providing a justification for Q in the first place, or he's incapable of even representing Q because he just postulates, like, for example, like another position, like the Tao, for example, if he's incapable of actually like representing the Taoist position, then positing it as an option is just a non sequitur.
That doesn't. That's not a non sequitur. Directly saying this is an option.
He can't represent the
binary is false.
Because he can't represent the alternate, meaning he can't actually show that P is not the case because he can't represent Q correctly.
Let's think this through. So do you think that all true views are justified views?
All true views, I believe, is only one true view.
Do you believe that truth exists?
There are multiple true views. Yes, I do. First of all, but there are multiple true views.
Yeah, I mean, I deny that.
Yes, I am a fallibilist. That's a claim about knowledge. That's not a claim about truth, schoolboy.
Yeah, I mean,
so again, I'm going
to.
So we can have a true. Okay, so is there
call something true? Where
my car is outside my house right now, and then there's a true view that there's a rock outside my house right now, and those two views are non-identical.
That wouldn't be a paradigm, by the way.
They're not. Did I say it was a paradigm, or did I say there are multiple true
This argument has to do with paradigms. So your argument is literally,
and this is a complete non sequitur that you're doing right now. You're trying to.
I'm trying to stay on topic. You're the one that's bringing it towards just observable data.
Okay,
Speaking
so I'm
of going
giving you
off
the.
topic,
that's the first
James,
question.
can you please say Scooby Doo Doo for the audience?
I was wondering when I was gonna come up. Scooby Doo.
That's good enough for me. Okay, Corinth, back to you.
Okay, so I asked the prior question. Now that we clarified, I'm not asking in terms of paradigms here. Are all, if we have all justified views true views, or are all true views justified views?
If we're not talking about a paradigm.
Yep.
I'd say that you still have to have some form of paradigm to make the case for any of those observable things.
Was that a question I asked you, or?
Yes.
So the question I asked you was, do you need a paradigm, or was it all true views?
To make a truth statement, yes, you need a paradigm, Corinth.
That wasn't the question I asked you, Bryce.
So
I didn't ask you about
I did answer that question.
I didn't ask you, can you make a statement? I asked you, are all true views justified views?
That is, dude. That's literally.
Can there be an unjustified view?
That's making a statement about a truth value. That's making a statement about a truth value.
I'm asking you a question right now. I'm asking you an affirmation of this or not. You're not answering the question I asked you.
In terms of affirming a truth, that requires a paradigm. So
did I ask you to affirm the truth, or did I ask you?
Are you not going to engage with the fact that you're being disingenuous with this argument?
I'm not being disingenuous right now. You're not answering the question.
The entire point.
Can you tell me what was the
argument
that's being made? Are all true views justified views?
Are all true views justified views within a paradigm?
Categorically.
Categorically within a paradigm?
Categorically.
Within what?
Do you think that truth is contingent on a mind?
Theory neutral?
Bryce, do you think truth is contingent on a mind?
I do, yes.
Okay, so then you're just a subjectivist at this point.
I'm not a subjectivist. Because that mind is
that definitionally by saying I think this is dependent on a mind, you are a subjectivist.
So you think truth exists in a vacuum?
Yes, I think things are true or not, regardless of if there's a mind or not.
Okay, so truth exists in a vacuum.
I don't think you need a mind to say, well, that planet was there.
How are you able to grasp what a truth is if it's in a vacuum?
Oh, I can't grasp it without a vacuum because that's me being a mind. That's not the question I asked you, and this is you again trying to pivot off of it.
How did I pivot?
Because the question originally was, are all true views justified views? And you still not given a yes or no answer to the yes or no question.
because it's not a yes or no question. You're actually
okay. Can you tell me the third option?
You're literally asking a complex question and requiring a simple answer.
Can you tell me why the law of excluded middle doesn't apply in this given case?
Within what, the P or Q?
No, in the are all true views justified views.
If
this
it's
is a yes or no question. You're saying it's not a yes or no question,
paradigm,
which is going to say, well, there's a third option that's violating the principle of bivalence, the law of excluded middle, whatever theory of logic you hold to.
Do you not need a paradigm to affirm it? Do you not need a paradigm to affirm those things?
You might, but that's not the question I'm asking you.
So you think that that stuff is theory neutral?
Can you give me an answer to the question?
I have been answering you this entire time. I don't know why. I don't know why you're not tracking.
The yes or no question.
It's not just a yes or no question. It's a yes insofar as
the principle of bivalence doesn't obtain in this case. Can you tell me why the principle of bivalence?
It would be a yes. It would be a yes insofar as
foundational aspects of logic today.
It would be a yes insofar as declaring your paradigm. I just said that.
Motherfucker, what just happened?
I don't know why you're crashing out.
I'm being refusing to accept a person's answer because you're trying to insist on one of two answers, and he's saying it's
right. Is it yes or no? Or all A's B?
You say it's a yes or a no, but in reality,
is there a third option to are all A's B than yes or no?
If it's in a paradigm, then yes, you can say that.
Okay, Bryce, what do you mean by if it's in a paradigm?
Yeah, so like if somebody's holding to, for example, like an empirical materialist view, if they say all true things are justified, right, they would have to determine on what brings something to truth in the empirical view. So if we're able to come to the conclusion via observation or something like the scientific method that those things are true, you can say that all true things within empiricism are true because they're proven through observation and the scientific method and things like that. So again, your question is not it's not just a simple question.
Actually,
it's a complex question.
No,
you're asking a complex question and requiring a simple answer, which is disingenuous in nature.
As stupid as you're presenting yourself to be.
I understand that you're like crashing out, brother, but like I'm chilling here. I don't know why you're
the question in direct form is are all A's B? You've affirmed that's not a yes or no question.
Yeah,
or all A's
on how we apprehend that truth.
All A is identical to B. This is not something that's either yes or no.
This is insane, bro. I don't know how you're not tracking what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's insane that you're refusing to answer a direct question.
I answered
gone into hard subjectivism,
and then I explained it. Can you explain how I'm being subjective? Can you explain how I'm subjective?
This might be a question. Sure, subjective is going to be something that truth is mind dependent. That's truth subjectivism.
Yeah,
which is something you directly affirm.
The mind that I ground that truth in, though, is not mine.
That doesn't have anything to do with if you're.
We don't ground it in a particular.
If I say, okay, I'm grounding in Gnostic informant's mind. It's not my mind. Am I still subjectivist?
What is his position?
I'm just grounding truth in his mind. Am I still subjectivist, or does me saying, well, it's not my mind work?
Then it would just be considered arbitrary, yeah.
So this has nothing to do with if it's a subjectivist position or not, which is why I'm asking you that, and I'm not sure again why you're not answering the direct question.
It wouldn't be considered just subjectivist because I just told you that mine would be grounded in
universal
you just
mind.
No,
it's not.
You have no idea what the difference
between universal. It can be a universal subjectivist if the mind is universal.
A universal subjectivist. A universal subjectivist.
Yes. Universal and objective
are all particulars bound by that universal truth.
This is your view, so maybe you're asking me questions about your view at this point?
No, I'm asking because you just said universal subjectivism.
Yeah, that's the form you're taking right now.
Yeah, explain that.
So universal is going to be something like this applies in all cases. Objective is going to say this is a mind-independent fact.
Yeah, so mind-independent of human beings, right?
A planet exists 1 foot under me. Right now, that's not a universal claim because at any point in the universe, the me being referenced there could not have a planet under them. But it is an objectively true statement that's showing objective and universal are not identical. We can say, well, it's objectively
your paradigm for it to be the case.
To my house right now. This can be objectively incorrect for my point, but that's not a universal thing because there are points 100 feet away from my house.
Yeah, that would be entirely dependent on the paradigm, whether or not those things are true or not.
Okay, what aspect of the paradigm is going to falsify if the planet exists?
Whether the planet exists, whether or not you actually affirm
paradigms are ideas of beliefs. You can affirm false things. Bryce.
Paradigms are actually
you affirm a lot of false things.
No, I mean that good claim, dude. So in terms of the paradigm, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that you can just throw claims.
Okay, so are you gonna make the claim that paradigms
I'm still trying to figure out how a universal subjectivist mindset is possible.
Sure, because you can.
Because you said that I affirm that.
You're saying the mind applies in all universal areas. but it's still a mind which you're grounding in, which is going to be definitionally subjectivist, and you're going to be
No, it's not.
definitionally universal.
No, subjectivism implies that there are particular ideas. There are particular.
That's not at all
concepts.
true. You just
Yes,
don't
it
know
is.
what you're talking about here.
Oh, okay.
You just fundamentally don't know the term you're using at this point, which is not unexpected given your
Subjectivism
views.
would be considered mind dependent, equal to other minds, right?
No, that's not at all an implication.
So there can be.
First part you said
what would
is
make
correct,
something?
actually.
What would make something objective regarding this?
It being a mind independent thing.
A mind
Things that are
independent.
objective are mind independent. Things that are subjective are mind dependent.
Can you give me?
That's what
Can you give
those
me an
two words
example?
mean
Can you
in
give me
this
an example of something that would be entirely mind independent without implying that there would be
Sure.
no form of
The
paradigm
Earth
involved?
existing right below
That's
us.
literally
Whether or not we
mind
have
independent.
minds here, the fact of the matter is the Earth is still going. So we can remove every mind in
Good
the
claim.
universe.
Good claim.
Sure,
Again.
Bryce. If we removed every mind in the universe, does that change anything about the ontology of the Earth?
We haven't even gotten to the fact that the ontology
Yes or
of the
no,
Earth
Bryce?
is a thing. It's not a simple yes or
Yes
no.
or no, Bryce?
It's not a simple yes or no yet again.
Again, if we remove all other minds in the universe, does this change the ontology of the Earth?
We don't even know if
Not
the
a
Earth
yes or
exists
no
yet.
question.
We haven't even
Bryce,
established
you
whether the
can't
Earth exists
answer
or
a
not.
direct question.
I have answered multiple times.
No, you haven't.
You're
You've been
literally
dodging
you're
repeatedly.
presupposing the Earth exists already.
Do you reject that the Earth exists?
I don't, but that's irrelevant to your argument.
Okay, so we share this belief.
That's
We can
irrelevant to the
analyze this
argument.
belief.
Oh, okay. So then we
We
just
can analyze this
concede,
belief
right?
then.
We just concede.
Is
that,
the
right?
truth value of this is completely irrelevant to this idea.
I ground the fact that there's ontology in the Earth in a different way than you do.
Okay, what do you ground it in, Bryce?
I ground it in the mind of God. The fact that
Okay,
that God
justify
created
this.
the Earth.
Justify that if
justify it?
God's
the
mind
impossibility
didn't
of the
exist.
contrary.
Sure, show me the impossibility of the contrary to the Earth doesn't exist if the mind of God does not exist.
That's literally not even my argument. That has
That's the
nothing to do with
impossibility of the
arguing.
contrary to the thing you said you were grounding it in, retard. Can you fucking answer the question?
Now I'm gonna get banned from TikTok. GG's. So, are you able to use regular language?
Are you able to answer a question?
I am. I've answered multiple times.
No, you haven't. You've dodged repeatedly. And now
I
you're just
haven't.
saying
You
that's not
literally
the
keep
position.
asking.
When you literally said, yes, this is the view. I'm grounding in the impossibility of the contrary. So I ask you, okay, you show me how it is impossible for this view to not be the case. And then you say that's not the view.
Yeah, so when
Bryce,
you say
you are a
mind
retard.
independent. Oh my gosh, bro. So in terms of a mind independent fact, right? That's implying that that thing
This is an answer to the
completely
question
true
of
external to
how
the
is
mind.
this thing impossible on the contrary?
You are
How?
making that claim that obviously the Earth exists.
No, I'm
outside of the
asking you to
existence of the mind.
justify the claim
You made that
that your
claim.
belief is impossible to the contrary. I'm asking you to justify that belief.
You
now.
made that claim yourself. You made the claim yourself that the Earth
So,
exists
Bryce, how
outside
did
of a
you
mind.
justify the impossibility of the contrary to the Earth can't exist?
Are you
if the
just
mind
not?
of
Are
God
you not
doesn't
going to
exist?
address the fact that you've been doing that this whole time?
You're
What the thing
pivoting
I've been
right now.
saying? How am I
You're
pivoting?
pivoting because I'm asking you the direct question to justify the belief you said that the Earth cannot exist absent the mind of God due to the impossibility of the contrary. I'm asking you to justify the impossibility of the contrary. This particular
You
belief.
moved into
and
that.
You said this is not
You
the view.
moved into that.
Because I asked you a question, you said I'm justifying this differently than you. I'm justifying it through this means. I'm asking you to justify it because you refuse to just take it for granted for the sake of the argument, despite the fact that the truth value of this thing in particular
You literally
does
have no
not matter.
idea what
Whether or
I'm
not the
getting
value
at.
of the
You have no idea what
Gentlemen,
I'm getting at.
Sasquatch, I'd like you to translate, but first, Wi-Fi coming in with the big five says Bryce is eating rabbit meat tonight. Removing all minds assumes Earth exists without God. L.
They're disagreeing on the language of language and how one believes that all things can be pretty well squared away in the frame of God, and the other believes that everything is squared away in the frame of language. And in that disagreement, that tiny little bit is their entire argument.
Pretty much.
Now I'm gonna take a shot.
Would anybody else like to
not
add
the
their
case at
thought
all.
process in here?
That was fascinating.
I think
Yeah,
Sasquatch
Corinne,
is
just
somewhat
how
good.
do you know? How do you know that there's any actual truth value to your arguments?
because there's a justified belief there that I think is also true.
Think
And
it's true.
Thanks, but that doesn't.
Can I ask one
That
question
doesn't
before I go?
justify and ground
Sure.
Can I
that.
ask one question before I go? Schoolboy, can you show how it's impossible for you to be wrong that there's gas in my car right, or impossible for me to be incorrect that there's gas in my car right now, or anyone out there in the audience that they
Good job
can't
assuming
be wrong.
empiricism.
I'm asking a direct question. I'm not assuming empiricism. I'm asking him to justify a thing. You don't understand how this works, Bryce. So again, can you justify how anyone out there that has the belief that, oh, I filled up my car today, there's gas in my car, doesn't actually have knowledge there's gas in the car because it's possible they sprung a leak because a mouse crawled into the gas tank, bit something out there. That's some possibility showing they're not certain of that belief. There's not a certainty existing in this point. And that means it's not knowledge because you're implying fallibilism implies not knowledge. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, so within our paradigm, in theosis, knowledge does not just extend to the temporal. So there is even access to knowledge that is outside of time and space. And also knowledge of things that are within time and space.
That would be grounded in things called the divine logi, which is also called the reflections of the divine mind, right?
And then you're also assuming minds, right? I mean,
in terms of what?
Well, mind has to exist as well. Like, where's it? I don't know. There's got to be.
I mean, in order to be able to postulate any fact, right? Yeah. In order to make a proposition.
Yeah.
But you're assuming that minds without brains exist, right?
This music is so groovy. What'd you say? All right, say that again. Sorry, what'd you say? I was vibing to that.
But part of your assumption is that a mind that is not contingent on a brain exists, right?
Yeah, I hold to the position that it's not necessary for a brain to exist in order for a mind to be the case.
And what do you ground that position in?
I ground that in God. The fact that we ground that in God.
It always
just a
comes
special
back,
attribute to it.
It always
isn't
comes
that
back
kind of special
to the
pleading?
given, though. Well, but it always comes back to the given.
Because the only minds we have examples of in reality are the ones that are contingent upon a brain.
So you ground it entirely in observation, then, right? Empiricism.
Sure, I suppose so. Yeah.
Okay, so then with that being said, that's when the reductio ad absurdum comes in terms of determining all knowledge whatsoever via that method. That's the issue, right? So like you can make a claim within your paradigm, of course, saying like, well, I don't have the ability to justify such within like an empirical method, right? Because I don't follow empiricism. So when I say that a mind can exist external to a brain, right? Like that's something that you obviously affirm. And when you tell me to justify that, right? Like we're talking about something within a philosophical context, not in an empirical observational context.
Right. So you're saying your paradigm allows you to simply assert things without having to prove them. That's
not an
essentially
assertion.
what you just
It's
said. I mean, it is an assertion, right?
Like no, it's a foundation rooted in a paradigm. It's not
like it's all an assertion. Like
I mean, your situation would also be just as much of an assertion if you're making.
I mean, but I encounter minds that are
you encounter minds,
right? Yes,
I have a question.
I encounter minds all the time. They're walking around in bodies.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, what are we talking about?
I wanted to ask Andy. Andy, I'm sure you are excited for this topic. Do you have any thoughts to add in?
I don't really know what was said, so I apologize if I repeat stuff. I kind of jumped in a little bit late here. But I saw a Gnostic Informants opening, and I just wonder if there's a better sort of way we can format the argument for Christianity in particular, where we can approach it from how do you reconcile the one and the many, like a philosophical problem, because you've been talking about like Aristotle, Plato in your opening a little bit, and I don't think that they reconcile the one and the many that well, but I think that the idea of a triune God can. So that would be my approach, where
if we're thinking about in Pythagorean and Platonist circles too, there was
but the question is how are the one and the many and relation, how do those come together, right? And so those triads aren't going to be the same as the idea of the triune God.
You said, I think the triune God accounts for it better. How do you know that? How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, I didn't even give my argument yet. So let me just set that up and we can go from there maybe. So I think if we think about like all knowledge requires, and you can disagree with these definitions if you want, but I'm saying all knowledge requires the reconciliation of the one and the many, or unity and diversity. So you can think of, people have been talking about universals, particulars, laws, data, subject and object. Quick note on that though. I think the part of the problem between Corinth and Bryce was Corinth was using subject and object post Descartes, and Bryce is using subject and object pre Descartes, and they essentially just flipped their meanings. So they were talking past each other, I think. So that might be one issue. But anyway, so all intelligible knowledge requires this reconciliation of the one and the many. And then I would say only a worldview with both unity and diversity in its ultimate foundation can provide the necessary preconditions for intelligibility or intelligible knowledge, I guess you could say. And so the doctrine of the Trinity is unique in that sense because it uniquely posits both unity in the divine essence and diversity in three hypostases. So as equally ultimate in God, right? They're equally ultimate. There's not a hierarchy like in Plotinus or something. So that's where I would start.
Right, but where did you get? How did you get to the
argument though? You just basically just said it's unique because it's the same but different because it's many and one. Like that's all you said, right?
Well, I guess my issue with it is that how did you get to the how do you even get to the point where you're determining what characteristics better suit the triune God versus Plotinus to begin with? How do you even know like which one's better? Like the triune is better.
Why does that matter for the? So okay, that seems to be two questions. So the first one seems to be, how do you know what is attributed to the triune God? Is that correct? Versus Plotinus.
Yeah, like,
and I
like
would just say from the writings, from Plotinus's writings and from scripture.
But you kept saying, I think that this one better accounts for things than this one. Where does the how do you even get to the point where you decide that Christian or Orthodox Christianity is the only worldview that accounts for everything besides other worldviews? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I'm saying that you have to start with the problem of the one and the many, which I think is a neutral problem. It's a philosophical problem we've had from the beginning of time. From the beginning of writing.
That's true. That's the play.
So don't you think it's relevant to ask the question that we have to reconcile the one and the many, or do you think that's not a problem?
It's they're talking about the problem of universals and like Platonism and stuff.
Well, universals in particular, that's one and many. But there's just the problem of one and many in general. How do those relate? How do they come together?
How does simple go to complex?
You would need a substantive reconciliation of it. You wouldn't need an epistemic reconciliation of it. Like, I don't need to know the difference here for this thing to obtain, though, right? A worldview can be grounded in there being a substantive answer without me having epistemic access to that substantive answer.
You're saying, so reword that, because I think I grasp what you're saying, but I don't know that it's so relevant to my argument.
I mean, so the reason I'm bringing this up, I'll add that in the end, but I'm asking, do we need to, when you're saying we need to reconcile this, do we need to get a substantive reconciliation, or do we need to get also an epistemic reconciliation? So do we need to have access to knowledge for this thing? The reason I'm bringing this up is the arguments being put forward to Gnostic from everyone else here are relating to the epistemic access to it, not to the substantive matter.
And for all of us, blondies out there, Kissy Cat sends a big 5 and says, let's try it with less than 7 letters, please. With words, less than 7 letters, please. Yes, I'm having a total brain fart because this is way, way beyond my understanding, and it is frying my brain. But yes,
I could try to do some double speak from like 1984 or something if you'd like.
So Andy, when you were basically positing to me, like, wouldn't you agree that the problem of the one and the many needs to be solved before you're even grounded in the Christian worldview or the Orthodox worldview? Why did you go to that question rather than any other question? What made you go to that question?
Because knowledge, in my view, is the ability to grasp at things and relate them. So you have something you're grasping, and you have something you're relating, and you have, within that grasping, you have universals, particulars, and you have the relation of those two.
Right. And so
I'm just trying to start like as basic as possible there.
Okay. And
I'm not Orthodox, by the way. I don't know if you're using Orthodox in the technical sense or if you're using it as just like Orthodox and heterodox.
Okay. And what branch of Christianity are you? Just wondering.
I'm Lutheran.
Lutheran. Oh, interesting. And so, how did you decide that the Lutheran Church was the religion that?
Well, I don't think that relates to this argument.
Why not?
Because the triune God is part of the Orthodox faith, the Lutheran faith, the Christian faith in general. If you don't believe in the triune God, you're not Christian.
Gnostic. Gnostic. I was curious if I could ask Andy something real quick, just regarding that specifically. So Andy, the main reason, like, I actually kind of see like why Gnostic would be asking that to you, right? So like in the Lutheran Church, right? Do you believe that in order to be a Lutheran, you have to affirm the Book of Concord?
To be a confessional Lutheran, yeah.
Yeah. If you're not a confessing Lutheran, then what happens?
You're not a confessional Lutheran.
Okay. With that being said, in order to be a Lutheran, right, to affirm the true doctrine of Christianity in that sense, right, would you say that the Book of Concord is infallible?
No, we have the norma normans and the norma normata, which is the norming norm and the norm. Scripture is the norm. Book of Concord is the norming norm.
Yeah, the known knowns and then the unknown knowns and then the known unknowns. Yeah,
that's not the same thing.
I know. I'm just playing. That's what it sounded like. So, regarding like the Book of Concord, for example, like being able to affirm.
Well, I don't look.
This
is just a totally different argument. You want to go into this idea of like, okay, authority, scripture. This is not at all what I'm arguing.
I mean, it would all go into the epistemology, but I mean, just to not get it off track, you and I can just be on the same side for the sake of the argument. I don't mind.
Yeah, I think if you affirm the triune God, you can.
We're just going to go with a triune Christian God in general.
You can always leave it to the orthodox.
Fair enough.
And I mean, and I'm not trying to drag this down, but it kind of gets into that whole simplistic fallacy. Like, what do you mean by the triune God then? Because the metaphysics that he's going to hold to this God, when it comes to, because he affirms the filioque, we don't.
So yeah, but so John of Damascus says that we have one substance.
Careful what you say right now.
I mean, yeah, I have a YouTube series started on his Orthodox faith. You should go check it out. So he says one substance, three hypostases. Filioque, by the way. It doesn't matter. One substance, three hypostases is all we need to talk about this. That's all we need to talk about this. One substance, one ousia, three hypostases. That's it. Don't need to talk about the filioque.
I mean, I would agree
or not. Okay, so why are you going into this? That's not even the argument.
I'm going to drop my stream, and I'd like to get my question. I've been very, very patient. A little bit of an asshole, but very patient. Were humans on the earth before Christianity?
What does that mean?
Who are you asking? Me?
Who are you asking, Squatch?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Yes. Okay, yes. Yes.
I can answer. I'll answer this real quick. To be clear, Christianity is not a quote unquote new religion. It is the fulfillment of God's promises to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, in the person of Jesus Christ. The faithful Jews followed Christ because they had faith in God and they saw that he was the promised Messiah. So you're making this.
Okay, I understand. I understand.
The answer is yes, Sasquatch.
I accept your answer, and I also accept yes. Either way, right? Because man had to be here for God to give unto him his son, for him to that whole thing. It sort of comes to me.
It's the same faith.
Was there morality before the Trinity?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
But wait, before the Trinity? No. He is the ground. I'm sorry, I was pre-firing your question.
I was going to say that was when you said yes, that really confused me. But okay,
I
did. I was a little confused myself, but I'm going to get that.
Sasquatch. Let me put it like this, right? Because like in our position, of course, like the first human beings ever, Adam and Eve, right? Like they obviously believed in God, right? Right. So like with that being said, like if God is triune, then they understood that as well. All right. So then with that being said, then the Trinity has always been the case, and the first human beings also were a part of that same system.
And this will be it. Now I'll step out, pull my stream down, and move on with the rest of my life. And I love each and every one of you like a brother. Once upon a time, there was a kingdom of Ur, and none of these people knew a thing about God. Did they have morality?
They had their own set of morality, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Bye,
Sasquatch.
Shout out to your channel. Go find him at Caucasian Sasquatch.
Yeah.
I'm Caucasian Sasquatch. I interview channels. I do this whole Sasquatch shills thing where I'll talk about you so you don't have to. I don't care what politics you do. I don't care what you believe biblically, secular. I don't care what color you wear. None of that matters to me. I'm more interested in documenting the live streamers of YouTube than I am really anything else. And after I do my show, and this is something I've never heard of anyone doing, and I might stop doing it soon, so might want to get in on the ground floor of this one. I do production work for anyone who comes on Sasquatch Shills. If you've got something you're trying to figure out, I'll help you work it out. If I don't know how to do it, I've got 400 other guests that have come in that might know how to do it. One of them can help us. And I have no problem with bothering the hell out of them about it. So much love, everybody. Like, comment, and subscribe, and send me some money because the grift is strong with this one. Much love, Sarah. I appreciate it.
Hi,
Thanks, Squatch.
Sasquatch.
Bye bye.
Schoolboy, I liked your Freudian slip that you had there, Schoolboy. That was fun.
It wasn't Freudian. It was me being frustrated and trying to pre-fire his question.